The rules were simple, or at least that's what made them seem harmless at first. All you needed was a piece of paper, a few drops of your own blood, a candle, and the courage to stay awake until 3:33 a.m. Claire and her two friends, Evan and Marissa, had found the instructions online, buried deep on a creepy forum about urban legends. It was called the Midnight Game, and the central figure was something people whispered about but never described clearly, the Midnight Man. "It's just superstition," Evan said with a grin as he scrawled his name on the paper. His confidence made the other two feel braver, even though Claire's hands trembled as she pricked her finger with a pin and smeared a small dot of blood across her paper. Marissa was quieter, her wide eyes darting nervously to the shadows in the corners of the room. They sat in Claire's living room, every light switched off except for the faint glow of the single candle each of them held. The clock on Claire's phone ticked toward midnight. Her house, usually warm and familiar, felt different now, empty, too quiet, as though the air itself was holding its breath. "Okay," Evan said, consulting the instructions. "At exactly midnight, we knock on the door 22 times. The last knock has to happen when the clock hits 12 o'clock. Then we open the door, blow out the candle, and shut it again. That's when he enters." He grinned like it was a game, a test of courage. Claire shifted uncomfortably. "And then what?" she asked, though she already knew the answer from the page they had read. "Then we relight the candles and keep them going until 3:33 a.m., Marissa said in a hushed voice. "If your candle goes out, you have to relight it within 10 seconds. Otherwise," she trailed off, her eyes fixed on the paper. "Otherwise he gets you." The words made Claire's skin crawl. She wanted to back out, but she didn't want to be the one who ruined it, the one who couldn't handle a dumb dare. So when the phone struck 11:59, she followed Evan and Marissa to the front door, clutching her candle. The three of them stood in a row, faces lit by flickering flames, as Evan began knocking. 1, 2, 3, each thud echoed through the dark hallway, louder than it should have been, like the house was hollow. By the 20th knock, Claire's heart was pounding so hard she thought she might faint. Evan smirked, and with perfect timing, he landed the 22nd knock at the exact second the clock turned to 12 o'clock. He flung the door open, letting the cool night air rush in, blew out his candle, then shut the door with a bang. For a moment, the three of them stood in silence. The house felt impossibly still, like it had been cut off from the world outside. Claire's stomach tightened as she lit her candle again, the small flame offering the only comfort in the suffocating darkness. "Congratulations," Evan said, his voice playful but hushed. "We invited him in." Marissa swallowed hard, lighting her candle again, her hands shaking. "I don't like this," she whispered. They returned to the living room, sitting in a circle on the floor, the three flames flickering between them. At first, nothing happened. Evan tried to joke, telling ghost stories and nudging Claire when she looked too tense. But as the minutes dragged on, the atmosphere shifted. The house felt colder, though the air was still. Shadows seemed to stretch farther than they should, curling around the edges of the furniture. Claire kept glancing at the clock. Only 15 minutes had passed. Her stomach twisted. She tried to laugh at herself, but the sound stuck in her throat. That was when Marissa's candle flickered once, twice, then went out. "No, no, no," Marissa stammered, her hands fumbling for the lighter. Her face went pale as she scrambled, her breath coming too fast. Claire leaned forward, whispering urgently, "Relight it, hurry, you only have 10 seconds." The lighter clicked once, twice, nothing. The dark seemed to press closer around Marissa as she shook the lighter with trembling hands. Finally, a flame sparked, and the candle flickered back to life. Claire exhaled sharply, realizing she'd been holding her breath. "That was close," Evan said with a shaky laugh, though his voice lacked the confidence it had before. But Marissa's wide eyes told a different story. She looked over Claire's shoulder, her lips parting as though she was about to scream. Claire whipped around, but saw only the empty corner of the room, shadows pooling thick and heavy like black smoke. "What is it?" Claire asked, her voice barely audible. Marissa shook her head quickly, clutching the candle as though her life depended on it. I thought I saw something," she whispered. The three of them fell silent. The house groaned, the sound of old wood settling, but this time it felt deliberate, like footsteps pressing into the floorboards. Claire's candle flame bent sharply sideways, though no draft stirred the air. Her throat tightened. She remembered the line from the instructions, "You cannot outrun him. Once he is invited, he will follow until the game ends." Claire pulled her candle closer, her knuckles white around it. Midnight had only just begun, but already, she knew the game was real. And worse, the Midnight Man was in the house. The silence in the house was no longer empty, it was thick, oppressive, and alive. Every second stretched longer than it should, and every flicker of the candles seemed like a cruel warning. Claire sat rigid, her candle close to her chest, watching shadows ripple across the walls. Her breathing was shallow, controlled, like she was afraid the sound itself might draw attention. Evan, though trying to stay calm, was quieter now. His cocky grin had vanished, and his eyes darted nervously toward every creak of the floorboards. Marissa, pale and trembling, refused to take her eyes off the corner. She swore she'd seen something. The flame of her candle wavered again, though the air was still. "Don't look at him if you see him," Claire whispered, remembering another rule from the online post. "Don't let him catch your eyes. He feeds on fear." Marissa swallowed hard and nodded, clutching her candle tighter. The clock read 12:47. They still had nearly 3 hours to go. Claire felt a crushing weight in her chest. 3 hours in this suffocating darkness, with something unseen moving around them, something that wasn't supposed to exist. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from upstairs, like a door slamming shut. Marissa jumped, nearly dropping her candle. Evan's eyes shot upward, his jaw tightening. "Probably just the house," he muttered, though his voice cracked. Claire shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered, "that was him." The words chilled them all. The bang had been too sharp, too deliberate. For a few minutes, the house went quiet again, but the tension didn't ease. Then, without warning, Claire's candle extinguished. The darkness rushed in around her like icy water. She gasped, fumbling for the lighter, her heart slamming against her ribs. Light it now," Evan hissed, leaning toward her. Her hands shook as she clicked the lighter once, twice, nothing. The seconds bled away too fast. Her skin prickled, she felt it, a presence pressing against her back, a weight like someone standing inches away. Her breath caught, she didn't dare look behind her. Finally, the lighter sparked, and the candle flared back to life. Claire nearly sobbed with relief, clutching it like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to the world. For the briefest instant, though, she thought she saw something in the flames glow, a tall, gaunt silhouette with limbs too long, watching her from the corner. When the flame steadied, the figure was gone. She didn't tell the others. She couldn't. If she said it out loud, it would make it real. The minutes dragged on. The three of them sat in a tight circle, too afraid to speak. Then the air shifted, cold, heavy, smelling faintly of rot. Marissa whimpered, covering her mouth with her free hand. Claire felt the temperature drop sharply, and her candle flame bent almost sideways, as though someone invisible was breathing against it. "Don't scream," Claire whispered urgently. "He likes it when you scream." Evan's face was pale, sweat glistening on his forehead. He clenched his jaw, staring hard at the darkness around them. The sound of footsteps echoed down the hall, slow, deliberate, dragging steps, moving closer. Marissa squeezed her eyes shut, trembling violently. Claire felt her throat close, her instincts screaming to run, but she remembered the rule: you can't outrun him. The footsteps stopped just outside the living room. Silence. Then, softly, like a whisper scraped across glass, they heard breathing. Long, hollow, rattling breaths. Claire's candle flickered dangerously again. She shielded it with her hand, whispering a prayer under her breath. The air was so heavy she thought her lungs might collapse. Then, suddenly, Marissa's candle went out. She gasped, fumbling for her lighter. Claire and Evan both leaned toward her, whispering urgently, "Hurry! Hurry!" Marissa's hands shook too much. The lighter slipped and clattered to the floor. In that instant, the darkness surged in around her. Claire felt it. The air shifted, like something huge leaned over Marissa. The girl whimpered, eyes wide, staring at something behind Claire's shoulder. Evan snatched the lighter, his hands steady despite the terror on his face. He flicked it once, twice, and finally the candle reignited. Marissa's sobs broke the silence. Her face was ashen, her eyes wide and unblinking. He touched me," she whispered, her voice cracked. "Cold, right here." She clutched her shoulder as though something had brushed against her. Evan and Claire exchanged a horrified glance. None of them spoke after that. Words felt dangerous, like they might summon him closer. Time crawled. The clock read 1:35 a.m. They still had 2 hours left. The house was alive with sounds now. Scratches against the walls, soft knocks from the ceiling, the distant creak of footsteps. Claire's nerves were fraying. Every time the candle flames flickered, she thought they'd go out for good. Then, a new sound. Low, Guttural. A laugh. It slithered through the walls, inhuman, mocking, vibrating through the floor. Marissa clapped her hands over her ears, rocking back and forth. Claire wanted to cover hers too, but she couldn't take her hands off the candle. Evan's voice was barely a whisper. He's playing with us. Claire's eyes filled with tears. They weren't even halfway through the game. The realization sank like lead in her stomach. They might not all make it to 3:33 a.m. alive. The Midnight Man was here, and he wasn't leaving. The clock on Claire's phone read 2:58 a.m. The digits glowed faintly in the dark, mocking her. Only 35 minutes left. 35 minutes until 3:33, when the game would end. She clung to that thought like a lifeline, but every second felt like an eternity, stretched out by the oppressive silence of the house and the unseen thing that stalked them. Marissa was trembling violently now, her candle wavering dangerously. She hadn't spoken since she swore the Midnight Man touched her, but her wide, glassy eyes told the whole story. She was unraveling. Evan, normally unshakable, was rigid, his jaw tight, sweat dripping down his face. He looked like he wanted to speak, but even whispers seemed dangerous. The air shifted again, growing icy, heavy, suffocating. Claire's candle bent sideways as if an invisible hand hovered inches away. She bit down on her lip hard enough to draw blood, willing herself not to scream. The instructions echoed in her mind. Screaming only makes it worse. A soft sound broke the silence. It was a whisper, low and guttural, but she couldn't make out the words. It came from the corner of the room, then from the ceiling, then right behind her. Her skin prickled all over. Marissa whimpered, clutching her candle closer. He's right here, she mouthed, though no sound escaped her lips. Suddenly, Evan's candle went out. The room plunged deeper into shadow, and the cold rushed in like a flood. His eyes widened, panic flashing across his face as he scrambled for the lighter. Claire leaned toward him, shielding her own candle with her hand, whispering urgently, 10 seconds. Light it now. He flicked the lighter once, nothing. Twice, still nothing. On the third try, a spark ignited, but before the flame caught, Claire saw it. A figure stood behind Evan. Towering, impossibly tall, with limbs that bent at unnatural angles. Its face, or what should have been a face, was nothing but a black void, empty and endless. Its head tilted slightly, as though amused. The spark caught the candle, and in that split second of light, the figure vanished. Evan gasped, chest heaving, and held the candle close. Claire's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might explode. She hadn't imagined it. She knew what she saw. The Midnight Man had been standing right there, waiting for the flame to die. The three of them sat frozen, too afraid to move, too afraid to speak. The clock ticked to 3:12 a.m. 21 minutes left. Claire's hands ached from holding the candle so tightly, but she didn't dare loosen her grip. Then, the sound of footsteps again. This time, faster, running, around them, above them, beneath them. The house shook with it, the sound pounding like a heartbeat. Marissa whimpered and covered her ears, rocking back and forth. The flames of all three candles bent violently, as if buffeted by a storm. Claire's eyes stung with tears. Please, she whispered under her breath. Please, just let us make it to the end. The running stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Crushing. Final. Claire's ears rang with it. At 3:20 a.m., Marissa's candle went out again. Her breath hitched, and she fumbled desperately for the lighter. Claire and Evan leaned forward, both shielding their own flames. Marissa struck the lighter once, twice, sparks but no fire. Her face twisted in terror, tears streaming down her cheeks. Please, no, 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 she sobbed. The darkness surged in. The air around her seemed to thicken, wrapping around her body like invisible hands. She screamed, a raw, broken sound that sliced through the silence. And then it stopped. Her candle flared back to life, though no one had lit it. Marissa froze, staring at it with wide, hollow eyes. She whispered hoarsely, he lit it for me. Claire's blood ran cold. That wasn't in the rules. The clock read 3:28. 5 minutes left. Every second felt like a knife edge. The three of them huddled together, their candles burning weakly, their eyes fixed on the shadows. At 3:31, Claire's flame flickered dangerously low. She cupped her hand around it, praying it would last. The temperature plummeted, her breath coming out in white clouds. The shadows stretched across the walls, reaching for them. The sound of breathing filled the room. Deep, heavy, right behind them. Claire's heart nearly stopped. She didn't dare look. The clock ticked to 3:32. 1 minute, the longest minute of their lives. The Midnight Man was everywhere, the air, the walls, the floor. Claire felt him standing just inches behind her, tall and watching, waiting for the game to end. The second hand crawled forward. 30 seconds. 20. 10. Claire bit her lip until she tasted blood, eyes locked on her candle flame. Finally, at 3:33, the clock chimed softly. The air shifted, the crushing weight lifted, and the cold began to fade. Their candles steadied. The house went silent, truly silent, empty again. Claire collapsed forward, shaking, tears spilling down her cheeks. Marissa sobbed openly, clutching her candle like a child. Evan dropped his head into his hands, his chest heaving with ragged breaths. They had survived, but as Claire wiped her eyes and glanced toward the corner of the room, her blood froze. For just a split second, she saw him standing there, tall and still, his void-like face turned directly toward her. And then he was gone. The instructions had said the game ended at 3:33. But Claire understood something the others didn't. You could survive the night. You could keep the rules. But once you let the Midnight Man in, he never really leaves.